there's a quiet question that almost every man has wondered, but almost no one dares to ask out loud. What really happens to your body if you masturbate every single day? Is it harmless? Helpful? Or could it be silently damaging one of the most important and vulnerable parts of the male body, the prostate? You've probably heard the rumors that too much of it can cause inflammation, that it weakens your reproductive system, that it might even increase your risk of prostate cancer. These aren't just whispers, they're warnings passed down in locker rooms, online forums, and late-night searches. Over time, they start to sound like facts. But here's the thing, they're not. And what science has uncovered in the last few decades doesn't just challenge these fears, it flips them completely upside down. Because when researchers at one of the world's most respected universities decided to put this question to the test, following tens of thousands of men over nearly 2 decades, what they discovered wasn't just surprising, it was groundbreaking. And yet, almost no one is talking about it. We live in a world where men are taught to be silent about their bodies, especially about sexuality. And when it comes to something as taboo as masturbation and something as terrifying as prostate cancer, that silence can be deadly. So let's break it. Let's talk about what your prostate actually is, what it does, why it matters more than you might think, and most importantly, what happens when you engage in a very normal, very human behavior every day, and how that behavior might actually be protecting you from one of the most common cancers in the world. This isn't about opinions. This isn't about shame. It's about evidence, and the truth that's been buried under decades of myth and fear. Because what daily masturbation really does to your prostate will almost certainly shock you. Let's begin. Before we can truly understand what masturbation does to the prostate, we need to understand what the prostate actually is, not just where it sits in the body, but what it does, how it works, and why it plays such a central role in men's health. The prostate is a small gland, roughly the size of a walnut, located just below the bladder and in front of the rectum. It wraps around the urethra, the tube that carries urine and semen out of the body. Most men never think much about it, not until something goes wrong. But this small, quiet gland has an outsized impact on how the male body functions. Its primary job is to produce the fluid that nourishes and transports sperm, the majority of what we know as semen. It's not just a side player in reproduction. It's an essential organ that supports fertility and sexual function. But as men age, the prostate tends to become more vulnerable to swelling, to inflammation, and most notably, to cancer. In fact, prostate cancer is the second most commonly diagnosed cancer among men worldwide. 1 in every 8 men will be diagnosed in their lifetime. That's not a statistic to be ignored, especially when we consider how preventable some of the contributing factors might be. But here's where things get more complicated. The prostate doesn't just age, it reacts. It responds to hormones, to inflammation, to toxins, to activity, and even to inactivity. And because it's involved in the release of semen, it's naturally influenced by sexual habits, including how often a man ejaculates. This connection has led to countless theories and assumptions over the years. Some believe that overuse can wear it out. Others claim that infrequent use causes stagnation. And still others have argued that abstinence preserves energy, while regular release leads to fatigue or harm. These beliefs, many rooted in outdated moralism or pseudoscience, have created a fog of confusion. For decades, men have been left wondering, is what I'm doing normal or harmful? Is frequent ejaculation putting my health at risk or protecting it? Unfortunately, until recently, real science hadn't caught up to the myths. The medical world treated this as too taboo to study seriously. But that changed when researchers finally began asking the uncomfortable questions and following the data wherever it led. What they discovered next would turn everything upside down, not just for men who masturbate regularly, but for the entire understanding of how the prostate stays healthy or becomes diseased. For generations, masturbation has lived in the shadows of public conversation, misunderstood, judged, and often treated as something shameful. In cultures around the world, it's been moralized, demonized, and used as a cautionary tale to frighten young men into self-control. And from this cultural fog emerged a set of deeply rooted myths that still shape how millions of men think about their bodies today. One of the most persistent beliefs is that frequent masturbation damages the prostate. You may have heard claims that too much of it leads to swelling, causes the gland to become inflamed, or even increases the risk of serious diseases like prostate cancer. Others insist it reduces testosterone levels, weakens sexual performance, or even leads to long-term infertility. These warnings are rarely backed by science, but they spread like wildfire through locker room conversations, late-night online forums, and whispered advice between generations. In some circles, these myths take on an almost superstitious tone, where ejaculation is seen not just as a physical act, but as a loss of energy, a depletion of masculine power. This idea has been echoed in various philosophies, from ancient traditions to modern pop psychology. But while these views may offer spiritual perspectives, they are often mistaken for biological truth, and that's where confusion takes root. What makes these myths so powerful is the fear behind them. Prostate health is a serious concern, especially for men over 40. And when something as personal as masturbation gets linked to something as terrifying as cancer, it's no wonder people begin to worry. The danger isn't just in the discomfort these myths cause, it's in the silence they create. Because when men are afraid to ask honest questions, they don't get honest answers. They either ignore their concerns or turn to unreliable sources for guidance. And unfortunately, for a long time, the medical community didn't do much to help. Masturbation was often considered too awkward, too trivial, or too morally complicated to be studied seriously. As a result, much of what men know about the link between masturbation and prostate health isn't knowledge at all. It's cultural baggage dressed up as health advice. But what if we told you that the truth is far less scary and far more surprising? What if all this time, something you were told might harm your health was actually helping protect it? That's exactly what a group of researchers set out to investigate. And when they looked at the data, what they found wasn't just unexpected, it was revolutionary. It changed the entire conversation about ejaculation and prostate cancer. And it all started with a single, long-term study that dared to ask the question most men were too afraid to say out loud. In the early 2000s, a group of scientists at one of the most respected institutions in the world, the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, decided to take on the taboo. They knew the questions surrounding masturbation and prostate health had lingered in cultural whispers for too long. And instead of ignoring it, they approached it with scientific rigor. Their goal was simple: find out, once and for all, whether ejaculation frequency had any measurable effect on a man's risk of developing prostate cancer. But this wasn't a quick study or a narrow survey. It was one of the most comprehensive, long-term investigations into male sexual health ever conducted. Researchers followed nearly 32,000 men over a span of 18 years, almost 2 full decades of meticulously collected health and lifestyle data. Participants were asked about their sexual habits, including how often they ejaculated each month, whether through intercourse, masturbation, or nocturnal emissions. Then, year after year, their health outcomes were tracked. When the results finally came in, they were nothing short of groundbreaking. The study found that men who ejaculated 21 or more times per month had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer compared to those who ejaculated only 4 to 7 times per month. Specifically, their risk was reduced by up to 33%. That's not a small difference. That's not a marginal benefit. That's a 1/3 reduction in risk for one of the most common and feared cancers in men, simply through the act of regular ejaculation. Let that sink in for a moment. The very thing many men were warned could harm them could, in fact, be protecting them. Not only did the findings disprove decades of myths, but they also opened a new chapter in understanding how sexual activity influences long-term health. What's even more compelling is that this wasn't an isolated finding. A major Australian study conducted around the same time found similar results, reinforcing the idea that regular ejaculation may have a protective effect on the prostate. The implications were massive. For years, fear and moral caution had defined the public conversation around masturbation. Now, the data was challenging those narratives with clarity and confidence. But the study didn't stop at just identifying a link. It raised new, deeper questions. Why would ejaculation reduce cancer risk? What's actually happening inside the prostate to cause this protective effect? And could this simple, private habit be more powerful than anyone previously believed? Suddenly, the question wasn't, is daily ejaculation dangerous? It was, could it be one of the easiest, most natural things a man can do to support his health? To answer that, we need to go beyond statistics. We need to understand the biology, the mechanisms inside the body that explain why this effect happens at all. And once you see how it works, the logic becomes undeniable. So, how is it possible that something as simple and personal as ejaculation could have such a powerful impact on prostate health? Scientists don't have a single definitive answer, but they do have 3 compelling theories. And when you look at them together, the connection becomes surprisingly clear and surprisingly logical. The first explanation is what researchers call the prostate stagnation hypothesis. Think of your prostate like a set of small, narrow tubes, ducts that store and transport the fluid that eventually becomes semen. Over time, if these ducts aren't flushed out regularly, old cells, waste materials, and potentially harmful substances can start to build up inside them. Just like stagnant water in a pipe becomes cloudy, stagnant fluids in the prostate can become irritants. The theory is that regular ejaculation acts as a cleansing mechanism, flushing out these old or damaged cells, reducing congestion, and preventing the buildup of substances that could trigger inflammation or even cancerous changes. It's not unlike cleaning a filter or changing the oil in your car. It keeps the system running smoothly. The second theory dives deeper into the realm of cellular health and DNA integrity. Every time a cell in your body divides, there's a small risk that something goes wrong, a genetic mutation. Over time, these mutations can accumulate, and in some cases, they can become cancerous. In the prostate, where cells are constantly dividing and renewing, the risk of mutation increases with age. But regular ejaculation may encourage healthier cellular turnover, helping the prostate shed older, potentially damaged cells and replace them with newer, healthier ones. By keeping this cycle moving efficiently, the risk of harmful mutations may go down. It's a quiet form of maintenance, invisible but essential. The third theory has to do with something we all deal with: stress. Chronic stress doesn't just affect your mood, it alters your hormones, weakens your immune system, and increases inflammation throughout the body. And inflammation, especially long-term inflammation, is a known risk factor for many types of cancer, including prostate cancer. Here's where ejaculation comes in. Sexual activity, including masturbation, has been shown to reduce stress levels, lower blood pressure, and even trigger the release of feel-good chemicals like dopamine and oxytocin. These physiological effects can help reduce systemic inflammation, creating a healthier internal environment that's less likely to encourage disease. Put all 3 theories together, and a clearer picture emerges. Regular ejaculation may physically clean out the prostate, promote healthy, non-mutated cellular turnover, reduce the body's overall inflammatory burden. Individually, each of these effects offers a small layer of protection. But together, they may explain why men who ejaculate more frequently, whether through sex, masturbation, or both, experience a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. It's important to understand that this isn't about turning ejaculation into a miracle cure. It's about recognizing the quiet, biological benefits of a natural function that's often misunderstood and misrepresented. Masturbation isn't just a matter of pleasure, it may also be part of your body's toolkit for long-term health. And yet, as powerful as these effects may be, they are only one part of a much bigger picture when it comes to prostate health. Because staying healthy, especially as we age, requires more than just one habit. Let's step back and take a broader look at what really supports a strong, resilient prostate over the long term. As fascinating and powerful as the science around ejaculation may be, it's important to zoom out and see the full picture. Because prostate health, like most aspects of the human body, isn't about a single habit or magic solution. It's about balance. It's about patterns. And it's about how all the pieces of your lifestyle fit together over time. The Harvard study showed a strong association between frequent ejaculation and reduced prostate cancer risk. But let's be clear, association is not causation. That doesn't mean the study is invalid. Far from it. But it does mean we need to consider the other variables. Could it be that men who ejaculate more frequently are also living healthier lives overall? Maybe they eat better, exercise more, experience less chronic stress, or simply take better care of their bodies. All of those factors could contribute to the reduced cancer risk as well. That's why ejaculation should be seen as one valuable part of a much larger health puzzle, a piece of the picture, but not the whole canvas. So what are the other pieces? First and foremost, nutrition. A diet rich in fruits and vegetables, particularly those high in antioxidants, has been shown to support prostate health. Lycopene, a powerful compound found in tomatoes, watermelon, and pink grapefruit, may help protect prostate cells from damage. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts also contain natural compounds that may reduce inflammation and slow cancer growth. Then there's exercise. Staying physically active helps regulate hormones, maintain a healthy weight, and reduce inflammation, all of which play a role in prostate function. Even 30 minutes of moderate movement most days of the week can make a real difference. Weight management matters too. Obesity is a known risk factor for more aggressive forms of prostate cancer. Keeping your body mass in a healthy range lowers your risk across the board. And let's not forget about avoiding harmful habits. Smoking and excessive alcohol use are both linked to a higher risk of many cancers, including prostate cancer. Cutting back or quitting altogether can significantly improve your long-term outlook. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, there's proactive medical care. No matter how healthy your habits are, nothing replaces regular checkups, especially as you approach or pass the age of 50. A simple PSA blood test, combined with open communication with your doctor, can detect problems early, when they're most treatable. So yes, ejaculation may help. But true prostate health is built through a collection of smart, sustainable choices made over time. At this point, it's easy to get excited about the potential benefits of regular ejaculation. The science is compelling, the theories make sense, and the risk reduction in prostate cancer is significant. But before we go any further, let's pause and set the record straight, because while ejaculation may play a positive role in prostate health, it's not a magic bullet. It's not a cure-all. And it's certainly not a reason to ignore the other parts of your health. First, let's talk about what daily ejaculation won't do. It won't reverse an already enlarged prostate. If you're dealing with benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, which causes frequent urination, weak flow, or that frustrating feeling of not being able to empty your bladder, ejaculation isn't going to solve that. It may offer temporary relief for some men, but it won't shrink the prostate or correct the underlying condition. It also won't prevent or cure prostatitis, the inflammation of the prostate that can cause pain, discomfort, or urinary symptoms. In some cases, frequent ejaculation might help reduce stagnation or pressure, but in other cases, especially if there's an infection involved, it might make things worse. That's why medical evaluation is so important. And let's be very clear, it won't replace the need for screenings. Even if you ejaculate regularly, you still need to see your doctor. You still need that PSA test. You still need to have real conversations about your health. Now, with that said, what might daily ejaculation actually do? It might help reduce long-term cancer risk, as we've seen. It might improve mood, reduce stress, and support hormone balance. It might help you sleep better. And in some men, it might even offer relief from certain minor urinary symptoms by reducing internal pressure. It's also a way to stay in tune with your body, to notice changes, to stay connected to your own health, and to normalize something that is often buried under silence and shame. So think of it this way, daily ejaculation isn't a miracle cure. But it's not harmful, and it may very well be helpful, especially when paired with smart nutrition, regular exercise, and proactive healthcare. In the big picture, it's not about how often you do it. It's about understanding what your body needs and giving it the best chance to stay healthy, strong, and balanced for years to come. Let's take a moment now to address some of the most common and often unspoken questions men have about this topic. Because even with all the science we've covered, the personal side of this conversation still matters. These are the kinds of questions many men think about but rarely feel comfortable asking. Should older men stop masturbating? Not at all. In fact, as men age, sexual activity, including masturbation, can help maintain prostate function, support hormone balance, and reduce stress. There's no evidence that masturbating into your 50s, 60s, or even 70s is harmful. If anything, staying sexually active in whatever way feels natural may support both physical and emotional health. What if I go weeks without ejaculating? Is that bad? Going without ejaculation for periods of time isn't inherently dangerous. The prostate doesn't immediately become unhealthy just because you abstain. But prolonged stagnation, over months or years, may contribute to some degree of fluid buildup or discomfort in certain individuals. For most men, balance is key. Listen to your body. There's no strict schedule you have to follow. Does it have to be from masturbation, or does sex count too? Great question, and the answer is, both count. The protective effects observed in the Harvard study came from overall ejaculation frequency, regardless of how it occurred. Whether through intercourse, masturbation, or even nocturnal emissions, it's the release itself that matters, not the method. What about porn? Is that harmful to the prostate? Porn is a separate issue. It's not directly linked to prostate cancer or prostate health. However, excessive porn consumption can lead to issues like dopamine desensitization, unrealistic expectations, and performance anxiety for some men. The key isn't the use, it's the relationship. If it's causing problems in your life or relationships, it might be worth evaluating. But in terms of your prostate, it's the physical process of ejaculation that's relevant, not the stimulus. These are real questions from real men, and they deserve honest, shame-free answers. Because when we strip away the stigma and start talking openly about our bodies, we take back power, the power to understand, to protect, and to make informed choices about our long-term health. So, after everything we've explored, the science, the myths, the fears, and the facts, what should you actually take away from all of this? First and foremost, understand this. Daily ejaculation is not dangerous. It's not something that wears out your body, damages your hormones, or increases your cancer risk. In fact, the evidence we now have from years of long-term data suggests that it may actually offer protection. That it may be one of the most natural, low-effort things you can do to support your prostate health over time. But does that mean you need to do it every day?
No.
This isn't about setting a timer or hitting a quota. It's about balance. About understanding that your sexual health is part of your overall health, not separate from it. It's about removing the shame, the secrecy, and the fear, and replacing it with facts and clarity. If you're someone who masturbates frequently, there's no reason to feel guilty or worried, especially if it's not interfering with other parts of your life. And if you don't do it often, that's fine too. The key is to stop thinking of it is just another part of how your body stays clean, balanced, and regulated, like sleep or digestion or exercise. At the same time, remember that no single habit guarantees perfect health. Daily ejaculation may help, but so does eating well, staying active, managing your weight, avoiding harmful substances, and getting regular checkups. These are the things that, together, create a foundation for long-term strength and resilience. And if there's one thing you walk away with, let it be this. Your health is not something to be ashamed of. Asking questions, learning the truth, and taking care of yourself, that's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's responsibility. So the next time someone tries to shame you with outdated beliefs or guilt you into silence, you'll know better. And you'll be able to take care of your body with confidence, clarity, and control. Because the truth isn't scary. The truth is empowering.